Hey guys, I'm going to try to help you out here a little bit with our slave narratives. And something I want to encourage you to do is think about using color, like I suggested on your on Classroom. Go ahead and get out your annotation bookmark for me. And one of the things I really want to suggest that you do is you color code these. So if I'm looking at these, I really want you to consider circling in pink, underlining in orange, drawing your question marks in orange, and placing an exclamation point and highlighting those ideas also in purple. And then when you find a connection to the text, ideas or experiences, this is where we get images too, okay? So when you find an image that really resounds with you, or if you find that there is like a mental picture that you get, or you really can taste the food that's being described. Anytime you get something that appeals to your senses, I want you to highlight that in green. And then in the margin, just kind of draw an arrow and write a one-word summary of like, oh, this brings up a picture, or I can taste the food. So you would write like pick or taste or smell in the margin in green. Also, let's come down here and let's look at the examples that an author gives to explain something. Even though we're writing the EX next to the author's examples, I really want you to consider also highlighting the examples themselves in yellow. And then lastly, the key details. When you find key details, I want you to highlight them in blue, okay? This is going to make them really pop out on our page. And then you're going to number them 1, 2, 3. What key details are things like anytime you have a list, anytime you have numbers, names, anytime you have a list of any sort, that is a key detail. If you have words that are repeated, that's going to be up here in powerful words. So anything we see that's a repeated word or phrase. Anytime you have a list of anything, a list of objects, a number, 1, 2, 3, or names or important ideas, I want you to highlight them in blue and then write something that cues that in your memory over on your margin. And of course, we're always writing important thoughts, connections, and questions in the margins, okay? Make a note here. Find some way that you highlight your bookmark, or you take a permanent marker or something and you just do like a pink right on the side of your bookmark, or you do an orange. That's yellow, sorry. Yellow's down here at examples. And you have a green by your arrow, and blue by your details, and purple by exclamation point, so on and so forth. But start color coding these and get out highlighters, colored pencils, markers, whatever you need while you're reading. I really recommend colored pencils or highlighters. Okay, let's go back to our slave narratives. All right, so if I'm looking at this narrative about Charity Anderson, this is tonight's homework. Let's think about doing that using the colors that we've just gone over. If you didn't write those down, go back and do so. Also make sure that you know to do lists and such. Okay, so let's go through this. Charity Anderson, who believes she is 100 years old, was born at Bell's Landing on the Alabama River, where her owner, Leslie Johnson, operated a wood yard which supplied fuel to the river teamers, and a tavern where travelers whiled away the delays of a dubious riverboat schedule. Pause there and go back. Let's get out our highlighters and our colors. Now, let's notice something. Charity Anderson, that's a name. Names are key details. So I'm going to highlight this in blue. All right, Charity Anderson, who believes she is 101 years old. Whoa, for me, this is a wow detail. Like, oh my gosh, she thinks she's 101. That's kind of impressive. Okay, she was born at Bell's Landing on the Alabama River. Is this a powerful word? No, I don't really have anything that stands out. Is there anything I don't understand here? Well, hopefully all of these words in this sentence make sense. Is there any surprising ideas? No, not in this one. Is there anything here that gives me an image of something, paints me a picture, makes me taste or feel a certain way? No. But what I do have is I have some key details. She was born at Bell's Landing on the Alabama River. Interesting. She's born in Alabama, where her owner, Leslie Johnson, I've got another name, and let's tie this with her owner so we know. Her owner, Leslie Johnson, operated a wood yard, which supplied fuel to the river teamers. So she operated a wood yard. So if Charity Anderson is owned, she probably worked here. This is probably a key detail. So we're going to highlight wood yard. And the wood yard supplied fuel to the river teamers. Interesting. And a tavern. Wait, what does the tavern have to do with it? Well, let's go back up here to the beginning. Her owner, Leslie Johnson, operated a wood yard and a tavern. Oh, here's another detail. She operated a tavern. It's probably another place that he would, it's another place where he would end up, she would end up working. Okay, and the tavern is where travelers whiled away the delays of a dubious riverboat schedule. I probably have some words here I'm not familiar with. Can you define travelers? Yeah, you know what travelers are. They're people who go places. Do you know whiled away? Huh. That one's a little sketchier. Okay. Well, if I don't know whiled away, let's go ahead and make sure we look that up. So we whiled away the delays of a dubious, what does this word mean? Riverboat schedule. And riverboat is a key detail. It means she lived near some river. All right, so now we need to make some notes on the side so we can remember this paragraph. Who's the main paragraph about? Well, it's about Charity Anderson. So I have Charity Anderson. It's also, by the way, title here. And Charity is 101. Whoa. And she's born in Alabama. And her owner was Leslie Johnson. I'm just going to abbreviate her as L. Johnson. And she operated a wood yard and a tavern. So she would have worked in a wood yard or tavern. And it was beside a river because we're talking about a riverboat schedule. All right, so let's just make a note of that. All right, so far I've got this stuff on the side. Notice I can just write on my margins here. I don't need sticky notes because you have a hard copy here. Okay, well I have a couple of orange words I need to deal with. I've got whiled away and dubious. So you need at this point to pull out Siri or a dictionary, and you need to ask what while away means, and you need to ask what dubious means. Hopefully you're going to recognize that to while away means to pass the time kind of idly. You're just kind of hanging out and chatting. Okay. Dubious in this case means like doubtful or uncertain. All right, let's keep going. Rheumatic and weak. She no longer ventures from her house in Toulminville on the outskirts of Mobile, but sits with her turbaned head and bespectacled eyes, rocking the long hours away in a creaky old chair, and knitting or sewing, or just gazing into a past painted by the crackling flames in the fireplace. Let's go back. Keep your annotation guide handy. All right, what are the powerful words or phrases here? I don't have any. There's nothing that strikes me as particularly powerful, but I do have a lot of images. Before we go to images, let's look at the second stage. We want to underline anything I don't understand. Okay, rheumatic and weak. I don't know what rheumatic means, so you're going to look it up. She no longer ventures. Hopefully you know what ventures mean. If not, highlight it. She no longer ventures from her house in Toulminville on the outskirts of Mobile, but sits with her turbaned head and bespectacled eyes. Okay, her house in Toulminville on the outskirts of Mobile. If you wanted to, you could kind of highlight this in blue. It's not a critical detail. It's just still telling me she still lives in Alabama. Toulminville and Mobile. Mobile is the capital of Alabama. But she no longer ventures, meaning she doesn't leave her house. Why? Well, because she's rheumatic. So this rheumatism kind of keeps her in the house. She doesn't venture. You need to look up rheumatic. You need to add that to your word list up here. Okay, somebody suffering from rheumatism is like arthritic and they don't move well. All right, she sits with her turbaned head and bespectacled eyes. Anything surprising here? I don't really think so, but I do have connections. I'm seeing an image. She has a turbaned head. She has bespectacled eyes. She's rocking the hours away in a creaky old chair. Like, this is a ton of imagery. I can picture this old woman with a turban on her head. She has eyeglasses. She's rocking the hours away in a creaky old chair. This idea of like this, the old kind of rotting porch chair that's been well worn and kind of creaks as it rocks. She's knitting or sewing or just gazing into a past painted by crackling flames in the fireplace. Now, here I do want to make a note. Past painted. These are repeated sounds. These are usually important. We'll talk about those more later. And crackling flames in the fireplace. Crackling flames, these are something I can hear. So over here, we're going to make a note on the side of our paper that I have a picture of an old woman in front of the fire. Okay. I had so much trouble getting up and down the steps and over the ground. I just makes myself happy here, 'cause thank the Lord, I saw Zion's march, is her resigned comment. All right, go back. Anything you don't understand here, highlight it. Maybe resigned. Oops, wrong color. Or maybe Zion's march. Maybe you want to look up what Zion's march means. And anything here really powerful? Maybe not, but there are some key details. What's a key detail? I had so much trouble getting up and down and over the ground. I just makes myself happy here. The idea here is she's struggling to move. So much trouble getting up. You know when your grandma gets a little bit old and stiff and she doesn't quite move as quick as she used to? All right, so we're going to look up Zion's March and make a note here. Zion's March, by the way, is this victory march of being on the way to Zion or the celestial city, basically telling us that she is on her deathbed. She's old. She's near death. Then she tells us this. Missy, peoples don't live near and ain't got no manners and don't know nothing about waiting on folks. I can remember the days when I was one of the house servants. Oh, here's an interesting detail. There was 6 of us in the old massa's house. Oh, numbers are important. Make sure you highlight them. 6 of us in the old massa's house. Me, Sarah Lou, Hester, Jerry, and Joe. Us didn't know nothing but good times then. What? Oh, interesting. This is kind of powerful and interesting, okay? We need to circle this. She didn't know nothing but good times. She was a slave in her master's house with 5 other people, but it was nothing but good times. My job was looking after the corner table when nothing but the dessert set. Joe and Jerry, they was the table boys. Interesting. Joe and Jerry were table boys. What are table boys? Well, maybe you want to make a note. See, we're moving on now to where we're interacting with our text as we're reading it. We're highlighting and making notes about questions as we go. Who are table boys? They never touched nothing of their hands, but they used the waiter to pass things with. Interesting, fascinating detail. Who's the they here? Well, I don't think it's the table boys. I think it's probably the master that she's talking about. That the waiter was passing things. Or maybe it is the table boys here that they're talking about, who aren't touching any of the food, and they have to use a tray to pass the food. Regardless, this is an interesting detail. They never touched nothing of their hands. Okay, let's go back through and make sure we didn't miss anything. We also need to make sure we make a couple of notes. This is really interesting back up here. Let's look through the first sentence again. Peoples don't live now, and ain't got no manners, and don't know nothing about waiting on folks. What does she mean by don't live now? We're going to circle and question mark. We can discuss this in class. And ain't got no manners and don't know nothing about waiting on folks. There's something really powerful here. She's calling other black people by a really derogatory term. It's so derogatory, I refuse to speak it. So we're going to circle this. This is powerful. This concept of a former slave calling other former slaves, this concept of they don't have any manners anymore. Maybe we need to make a note like, well, why not? Okay. And they don't know nothing about waiting on folks. I can remember the days when I was one of the house servants and there was 6 of us. All right, so we need to make a note summarizing this. What's the main idea here? She's talking badly about other black people. She's criticizing other fellow slaves. And she's describing slavery as a good time. When she was working in the master's house, it was nothing but good times then. This is really interesting. So we need to talk about maybe why. Maybe she'll go on to explain it. I hope you're getting the hang of this. We're going to do one more paragraph and then you need to do the rest on your own. All right, let's look at this. My old master was a good man. He treated all his slaves kind and took good care of them. All right, what detail do you know that's really important here? He was a good man. All right. A slave owner is being described as good. This is interesting. He treated all of his slaves kind, and he took good care of them. But honey, all the white folks ain't good to their slaves. I seen most tore up by dogs and whooped till they bled. Wow. Guys, this is a big image here. I've seen that word again. Most tore up by dogs and whooped or whipped till they bled. Now maybe you chose to annotate this in green because it's a big image. That's okay. You could have either one here. And whooped till they bled when they didn't do like the white folks say. Thank the Lord I had good white folks and they sure did trust me too. This is interesting. Hers trusted her as a slave. I had charge of all the keys to the house, and I waited on Mrs. and the chillin'. Oh, this tells us what her job is. This is another key details. I waited on the Mrs. and the chillin', or children here. If you didn't understand this and you had underlined this orange, you were like, what are chillin'? That's children. I laid out all the chores on Saturday night, and then Sunday, we have days of the week. Saturday, she lays out the clothes, and then Sunday, days of the week are important details. So let's go back through this and let's make a note here. Her responsibilities, she had all the keys. She waited on the missus and the children. These are her responsibilities. It's her job in the house. And up here, she's contrasting the way that she was treated. She had a good, kind master. They trusted her. But she had friends who didn't. Others were mean. But not hers. You see how we've summarized these ideas? You might even make a mention that this is like contrasting. This is idea 1 and 2. And then down here I've got a list of things. She had her responsibilities 1, 2, and 3. And then Saturday and Sunday mornings I'd pick up all the dirty things. Again, she's talking about her routine. All right, you need to finish doing this on your own. You don't need Post-it notes for this one. You can write on the edges, but mark this up, make it colorful, and hopefully this helped.